All right. So, I haven't even begun to come up with a name for this because it's not like a podcast or anything like that. It's just some quick introductions. Later down the line, we'll probably be doing some better, more in-depth um, interviews, But for now,
Yeah.
this is just to introduce the community to some names that they might not be familiar with, or names that they may be familiar with, but just don't really know much about. Haven't had an opportunity to converse with you, ask you questions, things like that. So, everybody listening, this is Dark Matter Mycology. He's a buddy of mine. He's been around for a little bit. We've been conversing back and forth on Instagram for a good minute. He has some pretty impressive grows, and I just wanted to bring him on and ask him a couple of questions for those inquiring minds. So I think we'll start off.
Hey, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, yeah. It's I was gonna say it's been since May.
Since May, yeah.
You and I.
There you
Yeah,
go.
you and I going back. And at first, I think we were both skeptical of each other. We're like, "Hey, man, are you for real?" Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're like, "You for real? I'm for real. What's your name?" That's not your real name. You know what I mean? Like, it was kind of funny in the beginning, but it's. I think it's true for a lot of things, in people. But yeah, man, since May, so it's been a little while.
It has been a whole
And
minute, yeah. And it's interesting that we actually shared each other's names with each other because that's normally something that people hold pretty close and don't let that information out.
yeah, I think it was one of your messages you sent me, and you were like super skeptical, and I'm like, if he's skeptical like this skeptical, then he's got to be for real. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, yeah, because I mean, that's my level of skepticism, the way you were. You know what I mean? So I was like, fuck yeah, let's do. I'm gonna talk to him. He's cool. But yeah, since May, man, and yeah, you and I, it was kind of. I was like, some of your grows. I was like, fuck, dude, who is this guy? And back and forth, but
Sure.
yeah, so it's been, so May, so
So it's been since May since you
started.
and I have been talking, but how long have you actually been cultivating? Because I'm sure you were doing it before I spoke to you, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I've actually been at it for. The idea came like 3 years ago, maybe I would say like 2, 3 years ago. Like I already had the idea, something I wanted to do, but I didn't actually get or start the research. And it was about a year and a half ago, about a good year and a half ago, yeah, that I really started to like do some like spore hunting. Like where am I going to get my spores and just learning about grains. Like I spent a good 3 months, 3 or 4 months, maybe just reading as much as I could, like just different forums and stuff like that, like looking up YouTube channels. Philly Gold, PGT was
Sure.
a big help, for sure. Him, a lot of Yoshi videos,
I
for sure. Things like,
I feel that a lot of I'm not saying newer like you're new, but newer as in I've been doing this for a couple decades, so it's newer to me, for being a year and a half. I feel like a lot of newer cultivators utilize those avenues to get information, and I think it's awesome. Like that stuff was not around when I first started, and I had to be taught in person by somebody. So the fact that we have these tools available to us now to research and just a plethora of information, it's pretty awesome. So it's been a year and a half or so, you say, but what actually made you interested in cultivation in the first place?
yeah. So this is where like the personal part of me comes in. Yeah, my, just kind of who I am. So during that time, so I started. It was about maybe late 2020, maybe early 2021. And I was kind of in a place where I was like just going through a lot of shit, you know, um, just mentally, like had gone through like a major breakup, someone I was with for a lot of years, and started drinking quite a bit, right? And so I'm just kind of down and out, and at some point I'm like, dude, I need a hobby. I need to do something. I need to get out of this rut. I need to keep my mind busy. And from having grown in the past, like just ganja, marijuana. Like I knew I was okay at growing shit. You know what I mean? Like that's something I think I could figure out. If I really needed to, I would figure it out. So from there, I just got the idea, and I just started looking online, just kind of like, hey, mushroom growing, like your basic growing magic mushrooms is like literally the words I used in Google. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so from there, I just started kind of like doing more research. But it really just truly came out of like just being in a place where I was drinking way too much, borderline. I mean, not even borderline, like pretty much alcoholism. Alcoholic, like just drinking every day, and like I needed something to pull me out. And I had already been reading a lot of how it helps, how it helped relieve symptoms of like addiction and like this kind of obsessive thinking, like, oh, I gotta have this and gotta have that. So, and beyond that, depression too. I mean, so I'd already been reading a lot of the benefits of consuming psilocybin or psilocin, all that. So it just seemed
Absolutely.
like the right thing to do. It just seemed like, okay, man, like it's checking all the boxes, like it's giving me a hobby. I already kind of, from experience, I feel like I can just grow some shit, if I needed to. And it's going to help with some mental health issues that I was going through, that I've been going through for a long time already. So it just seemed like the right thing to do at the time. And, so that's kind of where I started. Like the interest came from just like just different elements of, things that were different elements,
Yeah, actually,
one,
pretty much everything you touched on there is valid reasons that quite a few people in the community started growing for. Um, so yeah, it definitely makes sense that that was the beginning of your journey with cultivation. Speaking of your journey, so far, what are some of the noteworthy obstacles that you might have faced and overcome in beginning your journey of cultivation?
yeah. Okay. So it's kind of a funny, not a funny story, but it's dude, okay, so back in 2021, like it was August of 2021, it was my first actual tub ever. It's like this is my first tub, my first pins, everything. And the pins had just started to show, and like I'm super excited. And my AC takes a shit, dude.
Oh
Like we're going through
no,
a heat wave. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So we're going through a heat wave, and I'm super like I must have took like 20 pictures of the same view. I mean, just pinned. You know what I mean? So it's like I'm like super excited.
sure.
Anyways, I come back from work and it's like 102 degrees in my fucking little place, right? And I'm like, shit. So I go to my tub. Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm like bummed, dude. I'm like, oh my God, I finally, I got through the whole like grain contamination and the spawning and all that kind of stuff. Like I was psyched, I was like, go, like, bam, step one, check mark, doing good. Step two, check mark, doing good. Pins, bam, good. AC takes a shit.
We had that happen last
So,
year, and I lost an entire
yup,
yeah,
yup.
everything. I lost everything. It was pretty rough.
Dude, yeah, and and it kind of was like, fuck, like is this kind of some kind of like, sign or something, like should I not be doing this? But
It doesn't take
wait,
much either. Like our AC was only out for one
oh,
day, and all of everything I had just died in one day. That's all it
what?
took. One day. It was like
Oh, dude,
I think it was about 105 in here, 110 somewhere around there. It was during the summer, and I, I mean,
dude, yeah, I had Tretch in like 3 days, dude. Like I had Tretch in like 2 days, like fucking 2 or 3 days. I went out and bought fans. I was about to get a swamp cooler. I mean, I was scrambling. How am I gonna save this thing? You know what I mean? And yeah, Tretch hit, and I was like fucking done. But yeah, it was kind of like the first noteworthy moment that it was like, man, environment really does matter. You know what I mean?
100%.
Like
Yeah,
it's like, oh, mushrooms are super easy to grow. You just no, they're really not. I mean, if you give them the right environment, they'll do their thing. But to some extent, there are parameters. Like you can't go over this temperature, or they, what I mean, they will like not do well.
sure.
And then but there's like a certain temperature, like negative, like where it's too cold, they'll slow growth. You know what I mean? So like that was my first kind of like noteworthy obstacle, was like overcoming this, fucking,
Sure.
heat wave and my tub getting the Tretch, and you know so I mean yeah. So now, like, man, I have backup. I mean, if shit, electricity goes off, I got fans. I know what to do. I'll throw that shit. Like I didn't know then, but now I'll just throw it in the fridge. I'll
Yeah,
throw the tub in the fridge. Like
absolutely.
dude, yeah. So little things you learn along the way like that. Like had I known back then, I would have totally just took the food, all the groceries out, and just throw. Because I only had one tub at the time, so I totally could fit.
So, what are some of your favorite genetics to work with, and why?
yeah. So right now I'm kind of like to me it's like something that I'm growing like and I'm excited is always my favorite genetic. But right, like I've had many favorite genetics along this way, along the way. But right now,
What
Steel Magnolia is kind of
Steel Magnolia? That's a solid choice.
yeah, man.
And
Yeah,
why
I
is
love
it
it.
your favorite?
I just love how like robust they get. Like they're really just beautiful. The colors are like this amber looking, deep amber looking at times, and
Sure.
they're just like they're really just like a sturdy, just strong
They are
looking
very
mushroom. Like,
hardy. Yeah, absolutely.
they are. I like some of those little squatty ones, and like I just got done with the tub of Watula, or Walta, however you pronounce it,
Hualta.
and
I could be wrong as well.
Walta.
I'm
Oh
very
yeah,
known for mispronouncing these genetics that they come out with.
me too. No, I'm yeah.
Like
It's
that
like
one.
agar a.
I still don't know what it's called. It's like HAOLE or something like that, and I call it Hale, but I have no idea how to actually pronounce that.
Yeah, Halo. Yeah, I'm bad with it. Like agar. It's like some, but yeah. So they're really cool. Like they were. It was a nice little grow, but they're kind of just small and like stunted looking. And I feel like these steel magnolias are like a good balance. They're not super big. They're not super small. They're just nice, stocky, solid little guys. And they're as far as flavor, I mean
They're pretty
they
potent
help
too.
a lot. Yeah, they are, man. They do. I don't dose very much. Like I don't, I'll eat like gram, 1.5, a couple grams here and there. But I mean, it's good enough for me. And so this is actually like this is my first like this with Steel Magnolia is like the first time I'm getting into actually trying crosses and like pheno chasing.
Sure.
So yeah, man, finally got into that. Like it's been a while. Like it's something I wanted to do, but like yes, this Steel Magnolia has been kind of like I want to work with this one. I'm trying to do Steel Magnolia Walter Cross just because they both were fruiting at the same time. So I'm just gonna give it a shot. This ghetto cross that people talk about. I'm like
Yeah,
I'm
the
just gonna
ghetto
give it
smash.
a shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, and see what happens. Like I've heard some people have great success. Like they've had really good success with it. Like outcomes. So that's gonna be my first time really seeing like what can come of like this the ghetto swab smashing two different strains of spores together
Sure.
and actually from this not this last grow but the grow before then I got like a really it's not squatty but it's just fat little chunky like thick little dude and I named him El Chapo. Like I'm gonna try to run, so that's the first pheno like I'm actually chasing that I've ever tried to like work on, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's coming from the Steel Magnolia. So far that's my favorite right now. And
Very
yeah,
cool.
so yeah, but definitely others that I want to work on, work with.
Oh, absolutely. That's a never ending that's a never ending
Never,
ordeal. There's
never do.
always something new to play around with. So,
I mean, I'm still yeah. So what's up?
considering
Yep.
the experience you've had over the last year and a half, are there any tips or advice that you would like to impart upon newcomers or intermediate cultivators that you feel would be helpful to them? Maybe kind of like them learn from your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think like, at some point, I think when you get going, you want to just be good at everything. You know what I mean? Like you want to like start pouring your own plates. You want to start, pulling your own culture, your LC. You want to start, you know what I mean? Like you want to just like you feel like if you're not doing that, like you're not up to par. You're not holding up with the big guys. You know what I mean? And sometimes I feel like just early on, it like my advice to some of these new people that are coming in is just really get your like grain down. Get your grain down,
I'd have to agree
get
with
your
that
substrate,
100%.
get your yeah, just get your get the spawning down, get your grain down,
I,
get your environment down. Like really truly understand like because every environment's going to be my environment where I live is completely different from where you live. I got a lot of moisture right now. You know, so and I found myself like early on wanting to oh well I need to know about pouring agar and I need to know about making my own liquid cultures and my own I need to start learning about this like this serial dilution. I mean now that I'm in it I've been in it like to me it seems like there's a natural progression like I naturally want to start exploring more and more but had I done it in the beginning, I just wasn't ready for it. So I think for my advice for some of these new guys is take it slow, man. Like you'll know when you're ready, but
I think
just
that's some pretty solid advice, man. Especially mentioning grain to start with, because the
get your grain,
majority,
right?
yeah, the majority of the contaminations that we deal with, knowingly or unknowingly, they originate almost exclusively from your grains. As long as your culture's good, and if you're working like a cocoa core, vermiculite substrate, there's not much in there to TAM. There's no real nutrients or anything like that for the other fungus or bacteria to feed on, and it really comes from not preparing your grains very well. Trying to deal with those possible endospores that are a problem is would be at the top of my list also to suggest to people who are new to cultivation. Um,
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, I mean, oh, go ahead.
So speaking of, are there any shortcuts that you've discovered that might improve efficiency in people's day-to-day operations as far as their cultivation game?
Yeah, I mean, this may be like a super obvious answer, but one, having a partner that works with you, what I mean, who kind of knows, going along with you. It's always nice to have four hands getting shit done instead of, what I mean.
Absolutely a benefit. I
You
agree
know,
100%. I'm fortunate
and
enough to have my girl here that helps out quite a bit with me as well, so I do understand where you're coming from with that, and it is definitely beneficial to have another set of hands.
oh yeah, and it's like we spoke about the other day, like Nikki Michael and Susie Greenberg. I mean, both of them together in there. I mean, they're knocking shit out, dude. I mean, like constantly. I mean, they're doing it. You got an extra person with you. That does help with efficiency. I mean, obviously, like people don't always have a partner, but my next I think would just be double up. Like if you have like get two pressure cookers if you need to. Like that's helped me with like time as far as time goes. Like I had to get another pressure cooker, dude, so I can get more done at one time. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
Dehydrator, I had to get two. So like I basically got two of everything that I'm using now. Just as far as efficiency, day to day operations go. I mean, I've one thing I mean a lot of people talk about is like no prep. I think that's something that would help, but I've never done it personally. Like that's something I don't know for whatever reason. I kind of like the whole prep process of it.
I,
Like
I would have to agree
I don't
with
know. I
you.
feel like I mean that's to me that's part of the whole experience is like prepping it, getting it, filling it, like boiling it, straining it, like what I mean. So
Yeah, I do know. I've tried the no prep stuff before, whether it's the quote unquote no pour agar. I don't like that
yeah.
term no pour. I think it ought to be called pre pour instead of no pour, because you're still
Mhm.
you're still pouring it, regardless. It's
Still
just
playing
just not
that.
after the sterilization. I've tried that. I've tried the no prep oats and along those lines as well, but they do work. They do work, but for some reason it
Yeah.
seems to work a little bit better if I don't go those routes. And the prep work, some people may find it tedious. It's kind of my zen, like it's my calm
Exactly.
moment,
Exactly.
you know. So I definitely
Dude,
agree with you.
exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like when I got those, like it's boiling. Like so, just recently I switched to corn. Like I don't know what happened, but
How do you like it?
like I went, dude, I love it, man. It's so easy to break up, and it's not any different. I mean, the prep wise, it doesn't take any longer than like oats were or like wild bird seed. I like it. Like, and the only reason I switched over is because I was having really bad contamination issues with my oats, and I didn't change a damn thing. Like the same protocol all the way through, and I just kept getting like like my jars. And then once I switched over to corn, but yeah, that's what I'm saying. The whole process of the prep work is where I do a lot of my thinking. Like it's like what I mean, like kind of stuck in a zone, just okay, straining it out, or it's even like doing like transfer, like cloned like agar transfer. Man, that's a beautiful thing. I just sit there by
Oh
myself
yeah.
and just kind of in my own little head and just next thing I know I've done like 16, 20, 30 plays. I mean, it's like god damn, you know. Well, I
I
did.
feel
I'm
that.
like, yeah, but I mean, it kind of puts me there, but not knocking the no prep guys, by the way.
No, no,
You
no,
know,
not at
like
all, not at
no,
all.
no knocking them at all. Like everyone to each their own. You know, like
Whatever gets you
definitely
results, right? Absolutely.
exactly. So those guys out there that are listening, like no knocking you guys. Like it's cool, but yeah, I mean, so yeah, as far as getting back to the question, efficiency wise for me, it's just I've just doubled up on the tools I use. Just PC, pressure cookers and
Yeah, I'm
dehydrators
there
and
with you. It does help up a lot.
giant.
I've got multiple stir plates, multiple dehydrators, all that. It actually does help considerably. So what would be like one thing that would be considered kind of common wisdom amongst the scene that you might not particularly agree with?
Well, I mean, I for the most part, I mean everything is kind of like like I've tried it, but the one thing that I don't, it's the hard set 2.5 hours to me. Like it's like hard set, like it's got to be 2.5 hours sterilization, pressure cooking 2.5 hours. You know what I mean? And like there's been times where I have to just cut it short because I got to be somewhere, I got to get something else done, and you know what I mean? And so I only let it go for like 2 hours or less than that, and I don't know. It seems to have worked out most of the time. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's not that I don't disagree. It's not that I disagree with it per se, but like in my experience, like I've, it doesn't seem to be a hard set 2.5 hours, which is a lot of people kind of put it in bold writing. You know what I mean?
Sure. I think
And
maybe the reason that they're putting it in bold writing is because they're expecting beginner cultivators to be reading, and
yeah,
probably their sterile tech's not the best, and they're just
gotcha.
trying to make sure that at least one thing turns out okay for them, which is the grains, and that's one of the most important things. So I kind of see why people who are doing write ups and things like that might stress that specifically. But again, when you get later on in the game and everything's kind of like a process to you now, it's second nature, and it's probably not quite as necessary for that elongated period of time. But yeah, I think it's just because you know a bunch of new guys are reading it and they just are trying to make sure that
Yeah.
they have some kind of success because that's really where it is, right? I mean, if new
It
people are
is. It is
starting
grain. Yeah.
and they don't have success immediately, some people get very discouraged and completely quit. And I think they're just trying to keep that from happening. That would be my guess.
No, that's a good. Yeah, I mean that's a good point. I really didn't think too much about like as far as the big newcomers go. That buffer zone does matter. I mean, like we talked about earlier, grains do kind of very your grain is kind of like step two, step one in the step two, step three in the process of all things. But it's weird because I kind of struggled with this question early on. Like I mean, like I messaged you. I'm like, what do you like common wisdom? You know what I mean? But I think I think everyone's just gonna experience their own. You know what I mean?
Oh, of course.
Common misconception. I mean, there's tons of them. But that's one in my experience that I've known like I know a couple of like I mean they've been growing for a while now and they're still dead set on the 2.5 hours. You know what I mean?
Well,
And
I have to admit, even as long as I've been doing this, I'm still pretty dead set on 2.5 hours because
yeah,
I've gone to a virtual zero tam rate doing so. So can you get away with 2 hours? You could probably even get away with 90 minutes in some of them. But are you going to have that low of a tam rate? Probably not. You're going to end up with one, two jars out of the batch that just didn't come through the way you wanted it to, and that 2.5 hours, it pretty much every single jar is going to be perfect. It really makes it a thorough sterilization. So again,
and to be honest with you,
I don't
like
I
and
don't
honestly like go ahead.
I was just say honestly, I think a noob who's just trying out, if they were to get a couple of tams, it probably wouldn't be too bad. As long as they had some successes in there, if they had 2 or 3 jars out of the batch turn out good, they'd probably be feeling like on top of the world. Like yes, it's working kind of thing. But for us that have been doing it for a while, we see one tam jar and we're like, damn it, it's just
Yeah.
different.
But for you new guys that are maybe listening, just do 2.5, guys. Just do 2.5 for real. Like it may just save your ass, like those 30 minutes or whatever. But like I said, like I usually will do 2.5, but there's been times where I
Sure.
gotta cut it short because like
Life happens.
something came up and like,
Yeah.
yeah, life exactly, life happens, and it's just like I guess my point is like it doesn't always have to be a hard set 2.5. I've pulled it off, but I don't always do that. Like, I mean, I do set for 2.5, and if I could get 2.5, I don't got to be anywhere. I'll do it. I got the time. Why not, right?
Hell yeah.
But
So
I mean, but so yeah,
Dark Matter Mycology. That's a pretty cool name. I like it. Your slap looks pretty wild too. What what was what brought you to that name, and what does it mean to you?
yeah. So initially, like dark matter, like when I came up, because I went to school for a while, studied some psychology stuff. Obviously, like everyone with a mental health issue growing up as a teen wants to study psychology, it seemed like, right? So I was one of those kind of people who was like, I want to study psychology. I want to know, figure out myself, all that kind of stuff. Well, like at some point, one like instructor had brought up like this, like they're called silent neurons in the brain.
Yes.
And like most of like most things that you visual like you'll see something, you'll visualize, you'll touch something, it'll stimulate some neuron in the brain, like neural pathway, right? So you get a smell, bam, your olfactory system kicks off all kinds of shit, right? Well, there's neurons in the brain that don't respond to anything. Like they're there, but they're for whatever reason, our environment just doesn't stimulate them. Like research has shown, like and they've put different stimuli in front of people, and they look at this MRI part of the brain and scans, and they just don't fire at all. What I mean? But they're there, so I thought it was kind of cool. It's like this blank space in the brain are these neurons that are kind of just darkened out, but just need something to stimulate them.
And we just don't know
You
what it
know,
is yet.
and we just exactly like we just don't know what it is yet. And I'm like, okay,
That is pretty cool.
psychedelics. What if? Yeah, what if psychedelics and somehow like kind of activate some of these silent neurons? And what does that mean for us? We the brain is like super. It's like we don't really know what it's capable of. So it was just a mixture. And then I always loved like space shit, like galaxy, and so it was just it's like just when I was young, I had a little poster of the planets and all that kind of like a nerdy kid. So it just felt right, like dark matter, dude. It's a complicated, whether it's in space or just the human body. Like there is a dark matter in both spaces. So
Space,
I was
yeah,
like,
absolutely.
it was kind of cool. And yeah, I shuffled around with a few names, but that one just kind of stuck.
Like,
And by the
it's a good
way,
one.
I want to give a shout out. His name's Silo. Um, he's the one who did my well, we went on Canva together, and he showed me how to use the Canva pretty much.
Oh, okay, right on. So
Like
basically,
the design.
this is the guy who helped you design the slab.
Yeah, we went back. Yeah, we went back and forth. Back and
Nice.
forth and stuff like that. And yeah, so you guys, want any art done, you can look him up. He's really good. Because I didn't really know anything about Canva until we started going back and forth with it.
Sure. So you
Yeah,
said you
but
had mentioned earlier that you don't dose very often. But in the times that you have dosed, do you have uh, any particular trip stories that might be noteworthy? Something you'd like to share with the group?
yeah, like so I was thinking, I was reading over this, and I honestly don't have any crazy trip story. Like my first experience with mushrooms when I was like 21 years old, and I must have eaten like an eighth by myself. And I've always ever just had really strong like auditory responses to psychedelics, like not so much visuals, and I don't know why. Like I've eaten, up to like 5 6 grams probably, and for whatever reason I can't get the visuals. I just it's just extremely auditory and like tactile. just really
Oh
like
yeah.
things just, yeah. And so like, and so I've been taking medication since I was young, so I don't know. And like I was reading on Facebook the other day, or I think it was yesterday, like some guy had made a like he had posted something like his buddy is taking some SSRIs, and like he just can't get to that point where it's like a full trip, I guess you could say.
I've heard that as well.
And yeah, and it's like I don't know if it's because of the medications I've been taking, like the SSRIs are kind of like competing with the psilocin at some point, like they, because I know they both like serotonin is being stimulated, right? Kind of.
Yeah, that's my
Yeah,
understanding as well, and that the SSRIs are kind of somewhat of an inhibitor. Um,
yeah, yeah, exactly. So I don't know if because I've been taking them so long and I continue, I'm still taking them. If they're competing for like receptors or something like that,
quite possible.
I've kind of read up. Yeah, I've read up like some stuff like McKenna did like some research like back in I think like back in 2000 or something like that. And I mean they do stimulate serotonin. It does stimulate the serotonin, like the central nervous system type stuff. But so does my medication. You know what I mean? Like the reuptake. It helps the reuptake of serotonin. So I don't know if it's not taking up the psilocin. You know what I mean? Or I like that's the thing. I don't really know
Right.
the mechanics behind.
Well,
You know what I mean? But
I think that there's a lot that's unknown about particular things like that. There are many people out there that are much more educated on the subject than say probably either one of us, but even at that, I think that there's still so much more to learn about that. The um, studies are far from conclusive just because with its status of legality, there's not a whole lot being done in that area of expertise and studying. Like there's so much
yeah,
more we're going to learn in the next couple decades, I think, than we have in the last few decades combined. I think it's just going to kind of
yeah,
blow up, especially with the way it's being decriminalized in particular states now. I think that's going to open up that entire subject matter for better study. You know. So,
yeah.
um, I'd like you to take a moment to promote anything you'd really like, whether it be yourself, your business, a friend's business. We kind of already promoted your buddy, but you might want to reiterate that one more time, uh, and just let anybody know anything you'd like to know. This is a free moment for you.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, there's many people I like to give shout outs to, but as far as I don't really have like I'm not really like a vendor per se, I mean, I just started like I said, just started trying to get some crosses going, do some pheno chasing.
You could
But
promote
if
some
anyone's
of your friends'
looking,
vendors.
yeah, so I mean, obviously the ones that everyone knows, like one of the first, and she's actually the first person that I ever like got spores from, and her name is she goes by Myco Maiden. She's cool.
Yes.
Like dude. She's big. Like she's a solid chick. Like she's good at what she does. She's kind of quiet though on the scene sometimes. You don't really she's not really out there too much. But
Well, I don't know
if
her
you're looking for
personally,
some,
but I've heard nothing but good things about her so far.
yeah, all of my early grows, all of my early genetics that I grew out came from her. For sure. So Michael Maiden, definitely, you guys are looking for some, solid, good, trustworthy vendor. I'd go to her. Um, Obviously, there's Yoshi. Yoshi's a good one. He's been cool with me. We've never met. Like these people, I've never met personally. These are just people that I've gone back and forth with just through like messaging and stuff like that. But you know, those guys are Yoshi's pretty good. Obviously Wombat. And these are all names that people know. What I mean? But if there's anything like anyone listening, if you have any questions or something that I spoke about or something that you want me to expand on, or you just have basic questions about, just the basic growing techniques, just yeah, let me know. Give me a, shoot me a message on Instagram, and I'm pretty good at getting back to people.
So, that being
Like
said, drop your Insta handle so they can contact.
yeah, so it's at Dark Matter Mycology. That simple. Yeah, just let me know what you know if there's anything. And there are a lot of people, that will come to me that like at my stage, like it's like this is basic shit. But I was that person too at one point. Or
Sure.
like this
We
is
all were.
this is a funny. Oh man, there's this funny story. There's some guy I met early on, because I was my first fruiting chamber actually I bought off Etsy, and started making friends. Him, the guy started talking back and forth, and man, I was drilling that dude with questions all the time. Like he got to the point where he was like, he's like, man, hey, I'm gonna be with family this weekend. He's like, if I don't get back to you, like I'm not ignoring you, kind of shit. Like I was being like the ex girlfriend, you know what I mean? Like fucking, hey, dude, what up? Yeah, like it was crazy, like what I mean. But so you know, yeah, so I've been there, I've been there. I've been that dude before. So if anyone listening that's new or just, want some, you know, insight into some, just questions, just hit me up. No problems. I will get back to you.
All right.
And so yeah, man, and you'll see what's on my page, like Dark Matter Mycology. If there's any swabs that you might be interested in, plates, culture, that just go from there. But I mean, I don't really have like a business per se or anything like
Sure.
that. But I will send out some shit if people are interested in it for sure. Yeah.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, I think that's going to conclude our interview for tonight, buddy. I really appreciate you coming out and doing this interview with me. I hope people listening have learned a thing or two, and we'll catch you on the next interview, brother.